Hello everybody, welcome back to Gelvin Valley Farming Simulator 15, map prepared by Wild Wes. Let me tab out to my massive contingent of machinery, haha. There, I think we get all of that. We'll get him ready to go. Turn back on our GPS. And folks, we are planting on this beautiful map. I'm still liking having the distance fog, or whatever that's called, turned off. I like that effect. Even if it isn't realistic, it helps me see more beauty of the color of this map. This is so steep in my... That shows you how steep it is when you turn around and the camera drives you into the dirt. And so steep, can't even crowd uphill. There we go. Let's see if we can get up there. We got the whole thing. Well, I'm recording this on a Friday after work. I've worked 12 and a half hours today. It's been a couple of days of longer hours. And you know, I was thinking that I don't know that I have played an episode of Farming Simulator in a long time without recording it. I don't know if it's just a habit I've gotten into or what it is, but I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that. I think not that long ago I talked about the stress of meeting some deadlines, and this time of year, in the line of work that I do, there's another deadline coming, October 15th. I realize it's a few days off, but it means I'm pretty well need to go into the office tomorrow. It's the final due date for individuals filing their 2022 tax returns. And I realize that sounds like a long time ago. The normal filing date is April 15th, but a person can extend, for additional time, 6 months. So April plus 6 months puts us at October. So that's kind of where we're at. And there's also a number of other things that are due that are causing some additional work and stress. So I'm not looking forward to going to the office tomorrow, but it'll be what it'll be. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy Farming Sim and try to relax. I know in the last episode, or one of the last, I was describing a fishing trip our family took. And I'm sorely missing it now. I mean, I think just a week ago, I was still up there at the lake and enjoying family time. And it's amazing how all the stuff you want to do that you scrimp and save and carve out time for, it's over and done so quickly. It's just kind of a picture of life. And then it seems like the drudgery of work, or a good lot of work, I'm not saying it's all drudgery, well, there's no end to that. So, but I guess it's some of that makes you appreciate the times you can have away. I've also been thinking and reflecting on something a friend of mine told me about. He went to, his name is Russell, he went to, I think, a Lego convention or something like that. He lives in New Zealand, and Uh, and he sent me several pictures of some of the items in his collection, and it brought back a ton of memories. And oh, you know something I haven't done? I haven't turned on my handy dandy little timer. Let me take a minute off since I've already started. Anyway, you showed me pictures of some pretty cool stuff. Most of it was vehicles, and it appeared, I mean, Russell will probably watch this so he can correct me if I'm wrong. It appeared like these were kits of some kind, specifically designed for a particular car or tractor or whatever. And he also had one, I think there was a lighthouse. It was really cool. It was kind of a bigger display. I think some of the vehicles were a little smaller, and love the pictures. And it brought back a ton of memories. You know, I don't know what I would have done as a kid if we'd have had something like, you know, Farming Simulator to take up my time. Probably wouldn't have spent it to many other areas. But I do know my folks told us growing up that one of the best investments they ever made when it came to us kids was Legos. And we had untold fun with those things. And most of them that we had, it wasn't very often they got as a kit. Kit can tend to be pretty expensive as it has specialized pieces and probably took some special engineering to make. And so most of what we had, I mean, were the big red block types, if you will. I say big, I mean, they were all, I don't know, maybe a centimeter wide, a centimeter deep, and inch and a half, and maybe inch and a half long. And there were some shorter pieces, varying colors. Seemed like most of them were red. And so, I mean, we built everything under the sun we could think of, and then some. You know, whether bridges or building or tunnels and just all sorts of nonsense. And it's amazing how when you're a kid, some dumb little thing like that can keep you occupied for a lot of time. You know, I know, like the tunnels I mentioned, we then take bricks or more Lego bricks and just shove them through the tunnel to see them poop out the following side. And we just thought that was so incredibly funny. And looking back, I wonder, like, how in the world did we sit there and entertain ourselves doing that over and over? And I don't know, maybe it's because we were little and we thought poop was a bad word or something, and maybe thought we were getting away with something. I really don't know. But just a ton of time. You know, there's nothing like building something, I don't care what it is, from scratch to stimulate the mind and your creativity. And frankly, I liken modding in many respects to something similar to that. You know, when you're building one from scratch and not stealing one from someone else and learning how to make the parts and learning how to do it, it's really good for the mind. It's good exercise. And you know, so looking back as a kid, I mean, those Legos were tremendous. I'm not going to say I'm any more creative than the next fellow, but when I think of what my parents could have had us do, I think I'll take the Legos any day. You know, I think I've mentioned this before. I grew up without a television at home, and those were the days too before the internet. So and you know, cell phones. I mean, nobody had heard of what those were when I was born, you know, as a child. So there wasn't any or much digital type things to distract. That would come kind of later, you know, as computers started to become more mainstream. But when I was a kid, I mean, it was Legos and the sandbox, and it was all sorts of things outdoors. Sandbox is another story in its own right. My dad, when he got the home that I grew up in, oh boy, this is decades ago, one of the things he did that I have never seen anybody anywhere do is he built a massive sandbox. And we're not talking just any sandbox This one was set in concrete right next to the house, had a sidewalk around it, and it was probably at least 18 inches deep and, oh, let me see here, 15 feet long at least, and, oh, maybe it was bigger than that even. I don't know how many feet wide it was, maybe 8 to 10. And I mean, maybe he just saw you had 5 busy boys coming, and we used the stuffing out of it too. I think in later years, as we left home or got older and kind of grew out of it, I think eventually they filled it in with some other things, plants maybe. And I know for a while we had to help him with this. Some water was leaking. It was right next to the house, the foundation. I think some water was coming into the house. So we had to kind of do some repairs, but another well worth it investment, I'm sure my parents would say if they were asked. We spent hours out there too. But in the Legos, I mean, there was, like I say, it was the block stuff, so we'd build towers, see how high we could build them, you know, without falling over. You know, we'd have wars. We'd build these structures and play fight and see if we could knock the other guys down. You know, demolition derbies, if you will, driving around. You know, all that kind of stuff that a little boy would do. But I think some of my favorite Lego stuff was when they got a little more sophisticated, tinier parts, if you will, and we could explore some of that. And Russell maybe can tell me what this stuff was, because I don't even remember. I don't think we have the kits anymore. But there were these kits where you set up these hoses, and the hoses would be attached to these little tiny pumps. And you could set up it would be like an excavator arm or a crane or something, and it would have would look like a hydraulic cylinder. Oops. And you would move it. It would literally move, but the power for it, of course, wasn't hydraulics. It was pneumatic. It was all air. And we just thought it was the coolest thing, because then you can run this silly little pump. You know, what we never thought of was we could have moved it with our hand. It had been just as fun, probably, but there was something about working this little pump and getting an arm to move or something to move on it that just seemed so cool. And putting it together oftentimes, you know, was no small feat. Although a lot of the kits, they came with pretty good instructions, so it wasn't too bad putting it all together. There were several things that we had, and I don't know, listening to Russell, I mean, it's kind of rekindled in me an interest to check that out. And so I've been Googling Legos. I'm trying to figure out where I could pick them up. I'm not sure what I'm interested in at this point. I don't know that I would care for just the red brick variety, if you will. Let's see, 546. I'll maybe run out of seed here. Do I have just 2 more fields? I better tend to business and see kind of where I'm at. Let's see. Well, I just did 8. That's growing. And I got 2 and 1, and then I think I'm done. Then I'll need to get the fields fertilized. Another harvest season on the way. Chance to get out of my deficit. Anyway, I'm not sure what I'd be interested in now, other than I don't know that I'd want the plain brick variety. Those were wonderful for the time, but I think now I'd probably be more interested in something a bit more intricate. And I'm sure, you know, this is probably an area where the technology has done nothing but improve from the days when I messed out with that. I mean, looking at some of Russell's collection, it was just really cool. I mean, there was even one, he had this car, a vehicle, I don't know if it's a Land Rover or what kind of vehicle it was, that had smoke coming out of the engine block. Smoke built up, with Legos. And I thought that was pretty cool. So I have a feeling if I tried it again, I'd probably want to do some kind of vehicular kit, maybe. I don't know that I'm creative enough to just develop one on my own. Oftentimes those kits, it's like a little engineering drawing that it would have in there where it told you exactly where to put which piece, that made it work. So, and some of them, as I've Googled it, there's some, I don't know if they're called Technic, Lego Technic. I don't know if those are the high-end ones, where, you can sink a lot of money in a hurry. I gotta be careful of that too. But really beautiful, really works of art in Legos. Some I've seen, what I'd be interested in is a farm thing. I've seen some where they have, a tractor or a combine, and you just put it together and it's pretty realistic, by the time you get all that in there. And some, I'm almost positive I've seen, have moving or working parts. I seem to recall a YouTube video I saw one time that had a combine, and I don't know if it was battery powered, I don't know how they did it, but I believe when you turned it on, whatever turning it on means, it had working pulleys. You could see the separator in the back shaking, as if it had a real working set of sieves, and just like a real combine. And so, something like that is beyond just a kid's toy. For all I know, that's $1,000. And maybe it was just a special thing that somebody engineered for themselves. Sometimes you wonder when you see these special projects out there, it isn't so much you can go buy it off the shelf. The person themselves maybe has additional skills that, that they create things on their own that just aren't publicly available. Like, I know I have a friend in the UK who has a 3D printer, and I think he's made a few parts for model railroading. Well, I guess if you have the ability to engineer something like that and you have the equipment to do it, you could do that. So I don't know, maybe a 3D printer could also make Legos, and if you have a program, I don't know what you need for that, AutoCAD maybe, to design specialty pieces. And if you're able to somehow design the machine as a whole, there's probably a lot you could do, that you just couldn't purchase off a shelf. But I don't think I'm that adventurous, and I don't have the tools, don't have a 3D printer. And at the end of the day, I'm still quite enamored with farming sim, so I don't see this as a replacement at all. But I do think, we didn't have, with our children, my wife and I, we didn't really do the same favor for them that my parents did for me, so we didn't really have much in the way of Legos. We had a few, but nothing like when I was a kid, and maybe part of it is there's just more means of entertaining a child now than there was then. We still don't have a television, so they grew up without that. But there was just plenty other things to do. And, in my parents' case, there was 5 boys that came first. And I don't know if that makes any difference. I'm not trying to make a male-female comment here. But we had 2 girls that came first, and I didn't see that they were very interested in Legos, let's just say. They kind of pursued their own thing, and it did not include Legos. But I know it'd probably be fun as a family to put some of those things together and to just work as a family on something like that. I know a few years ago we came across something, called adult coloring books. And no, I don't mean adult in this R-rated sense. These were just picture books, if you will, that folks could color on as something to do while they sat at a table talking to their family or whatever. We've done that a time or two. I can't say it's been hugely popular most of the time because there's too many distractions to keep people chained to the table. But maybe it'd be a little different with Legos. I don't know. Probably is gender specific too, for all I know. Oh, let me see here. Maybe when I climb up the side here, I'll figure out my GPS. So I really enjoyed that as a kid, and probably some of the funnest Lego work that we did. And I had some creative brothers. Really did. Far more creative than I am. Who, without a kit, built farm machinery. And these were little things. When I say little, they're maybe 3 inches long and a couple inches high. So we're not talking huge. Just big enough so that when you looked at it, you knew what kind of farm machinery you had. You know, probably the best ones were the little combines they made. One of my brothers put together a 4-wheel drive tractor, articulated tractor. It was pretty good. And it wasn't just in the building of these things. We farmed the daylights with them. You know, like I say, this was in the days before farming simulators, so we farmed carpet in those days. You know, you have the front entryway carpet, perfect rectangle shape, and that'd be one of our fields. Or sometimes, you know, we'd have our own individual farms, and we got pretty elaborate with it, I gotta say. You know, we have some relatives that live in the Midwest that farm soybeans, and I think somewhere down the line we picked up some of them, and so we were farming soybeans on our carpet farms. And so, I mean, sometimes it would take a lot of setup to do. We would place the beans out on the carpet. I mean, it just drove my mother nuts. We'd place it out on the carpet, and kind of symmetrically, if you will, kind of in rows, as if there was a crop out there, you know, that we were going to harvest. And then we come through with our harvesting equipment, or little combines or whatever, and we would meticulously pick up all those little beans and put it in our tank on the combine, and when we were full, take it over to something to unload it into. And like I think we drove her mom nuts as long as we were somewhat quiet and stayed out of her hair, so she could get something done. I don't think it was too bad. Of course, we always had to clean up our mess, so that wasn't the fun part. But I just remember spending hours doing that, and you know, it isn't the action of doing it so much, it's what's going on in your head while you're doing it. And to someone who grew up wanting to be a farmer badly, but not having grown up on a farm, well, I mean, some kids at school thought we had a farm, but I didn't think so. All we had was a few acres and some cows and chickens. But to me, you know, my dad, he didn't earn his living farming, so in my mind, we didn't have a farm. But to someone growing up on that and seeing other folks who did have a farm, you know, it was something I genuinely wanted to do when I grew up. Oop! Looks like we are out of seed, folks. And of course, then later, you know, when I got older and was able to do some real work, you know, I worked on farms of, oops, am I still not on? Here we go. You know, then I could enjoy it for real. You know, I worked on the Lone Oak farm. I know I've mentioned that before. But when we couldn't go see the farm or be up there, this is what we did. And what we did on the carpet, we also did out in the sandbox in the yard. Like I say, I'm kind of revealing all my idiosyncrasies here. We had a riding lawnmower, and many times when I was mowing the yard, just mowing the grass, I was pretending I was driving a piece of farm machinery, taking care of that grass. And like I say, it isn't so much the act itself, it's the dream of what's going on in the mind, where the creativity part comes in, I guess. And I think I've mentioned before also the hours I would spend playing. There was a board game that we had called the Farming Game. I know it's still out there, you can still buy it. There's, let's see, do I get to go up here? Yeah, I think this is the field I'm in. I'll come in from the top. I would just play that also for hours and hours. It's one of those games you could play even on your own. You didn't need other people playing with you, and I know sometimes farming maybe seems lonely. You have a sole proprietor, the farmer out there trying to make a go of it, and feels like it's against the whole world. And there's a lot of times I would just play it all by myself and try to make up rules and things to make it tougher, just for kicks. Alright, switch over to here. Alright, I guess I could spread the wings out. I wish I could open my... Oh, it stopped for some reason. I wish I could open the top. Is there a way to open the top? Don't really have. Alright. Running out of money all the more. So the Lego part was, yeah, we weren't just pushing Legos around on the floor, at least in our minds. We were, some of us, me, we were running a real farm, at least in our imaginations. Oh, that wasn't good for the paint job. I have to recalibrate my drill after a move like that. So, Mom and Dad, my mother, bless her heart, tolerating all that and the mess that came along with it. There's only one time I remember her getting upset, really, with me. We had, I mentioned the Midwest, and we had gone on a trip there, and I brought home a partial bag of corn. You know, out here where I live, we generally don't dry down corn for combining. There is corn grown here. It's for sweet corn for human consumption, and also chopped for animals on dairies and that kind of thing, forage harvesting, if you will. But not the seed corn. I guess you do some in the other half of the state. So I brought home a partial bag of field corn that had been combined, and I was going to use it on my little Lego farm. And for whatever reason, I put it in this big can. I don't know what was previously in the can. It was like one of those cans where you have peaches or pears in it. It was a massive can. Who knows what my mother purchased for the family. Everything we got in those days was larger quantities, you know, to feed all of us. But I cut the bottom out of the can. That's the part I don't know why I did it. And I had this little part section of a tree trunk, if you will, or a limb, and just a flat little section, and I had it set on the floor, and I put this open can. It was open on both ends. I set it down on this little section of a tree there, and of course the bottom was fully covered, so I took all my corn and I dumped it in there, and it didn't come out the bottom because of course everything was covered on the bottom, and it was sitting flush, you know, against this tree section, if you will. And I was leaving it set there, and I was pretending, you know, I'd strip the label off of this can so you could see the gray, because what it reminded me of as a kid was the grain bins that I saw in the Midwest, you know, which had all these circle patterns around them, the grooves in the metal, that I think is in there for strength. Maybe someone who knows better will tell me, but I think they put all those ripples in there maybe for strength. I could be totally wrong on that. But anyway, it forms rings kind of around these bins. So I had a can of something, and you peel the label off, and it's great, and I thought it worked great. Well, my dear mother coming in there, I set her right beside a desk or whatever in my room, and she comes in one day trying to clean some things up, and like any normal person might expect, when you see a can full of something on the floor, you pick it up. Well, so she picked it up, and because there was no bottom on it, all of my corn ended up on the floor. And I remember when I came home from school, I think I was going to go play with it, and I went up to the room, and I saw it there all over the floor, and then Mom hollered at me and told me to pick it up and throw it away. I think she was embarrassed because she didn't know the bottom of the can was off. And it's like, well, I knew, but she didn't, so yeah, I remember having to throw it away. So I don't think I got to harvest corn on the carpet. But we did plenty of other times, and like I say, we tried to make a proper farm out of it. I know there's displays a person can see where people put together Legos with a farm representation, if you will. But I think they're all static. And you'll even see them sometimes on carpet where they're probably intending to represent a field. Maybe some of the carpet is longer than another. You know, if you got a field of wheat, if you got yellow carpet or whatever, golden carpet. But it's static. And, you know, here in our minds, you know, we were literally doing it on the carpet, moving it. And by the way, we didn't combine fast either. We did it what we thought was a realistic speed. And so we'd be out there a while harvesting our crops. And, you know, we had the tractor and we had other implements where we could plow or disc the field up. All these things we saw, you know, kind of in our relatives' farms, trying to emulate, you know, what we saw them do, and what therefore what we wanted to do on the carpet. I don't remember how old I was. I do know at some point my mom told me that I was too old to be doing it. And you know, that's kind of an interesting comment. I would be curious what you all think of that. When does, and I'm not disagreeing with her, by the way. I think it took me a little bit, but eventually I moved on to other things. That might have been when I made a switch from playing on the carpet, if you will, on my hands and knees, to maybe exercising my mind differently by playing the farming game by myself. Just farming in a different way, if you will. But her comment, you know, that I was too old to be doing that, you know, and here I sit here talking about this, all the while playing a computer game where I'm pretending to farm. And I have met many people through the world of Farming Simulator who are, thank you, Eustace Farmer, there goes the bell. I've met a number of people in this game who are older than I am, older by quite a lot. You know, I've met one gentleman at least that I know is in his 70s who enjoys this game. And of course, there's many who are much, much younger, you know, down in the single digits. So obviously there's a huge maturity difference and all that. And generally, I think the demographics stay to themselves. You know, you probably won't see a group of geezers necessarily playing with young children. There's just differences, and there's just differences. Just calls to memory all the times I've been on tried to play a public multiplayer game, and it just doesn't work. I'm too old for that. You get on there and you hear, they type things that sound cool, and so the language isn't always the best, and the aspirations are different too. A lot of them are just on there to troll and mess around, and I guess there's a place for that, but not something I'm interested in. Not anymore anyways. Who knows what I would have done when I was their age if we had something like this. But anyway, there you have it. I know Russell will probably hear this at some point, walking down memory lane. Maybe he'll even have some suggestions on where to look for to buy some of these. I think he's already sent me some in private chat a little bit. Maybe some of you all also are Lego fanatics. If you have a good suggestion on where to pick some of that stuff up, I think I would go check it out. But in the meanwhile, have yourself a wonderful day, week, whatever, wherever you're at, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you so much for coming along for a little bit.